Delivery room erupted in chaos as Eva Holder's blood pressure plummeted. Monitors beeped frantically while doctors and nurses rushed around her bed. Through her fading consciousness, Eva heard a doctor shout, "We need to perform an emergency C-section now." Her husband, Larry, stood frozen near the wall, his face a mask of terror. Just minutes earlier, Eva had been smiling weakly through her pain, squeezing Larry's hand as she prepared to bring their twins into the world. The pregnancy had been difficult from the start, but nothing had prepared them for this moment. Can the twins survive the tragedy that's about to unfold? Don't miss the shocking twist with African Legacy Tales. Stay with us, Eva, the doctor commanded, as the medical team worked frantically to save her and deliver the babies safely. When the first cry pierced the air, Larry felt a momentary relief. Then came the second cry. In the midst of the medical emergency, he glimpsed his children for the first time. Two beautiful babies, one with fair skin like Eva's, and one with darker skin. Larry blinked in confusion, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. "To your son and daughter," a nurse said, presenting the swaddled infants briefly before rushing them to be examined. But Larry barely heard her. His attention had turned back to Eva, whose grip on life was slipping away despite the doctor's best efforts. "We're losing her," someone said, and Larry felt his world collapse. Hours later, Larry sat alone in a hospital waiting room, his head in his hands. Eva was gone. The twins were healthy, but would never know their mother, and Larry was left with two newborns, and a question that pounded in his head. How could his children look so different from each other and from him? When the doctor finally came to speak with him, Larry looked up with hollow eyes. "Mr. Holder, I'm deeply sorry for your loss," the doctor said. "Your wife experienced a rare complication. We did everything we could." Larry nodded mechanically. "And the babies, they're both healthy, a boy and a girl." "But Larry couldn't finish the sentence. The doctor sat down beside him, speaking gently. "Mr. Holder, it's not uncommon for twins to have different physical features, even significant ones. There are scientific explanations." "I need to see the birth certificates," Larry interrupted, his voice cold. The doctor studied Larry's face, suddenly understanding the implication. "Mr. Holder, I can assure you that these are your children." "Your wife?" "You don't know that," Larry snapped, standing up abruptly. "You don't know what she might have." He couldn't complete the accusation against his dead wife, but the doubt had already taken root in his grief-stricken mind. In the nursery, the twins lay side by side, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. The fair-skinned boy with a tuft of blonde hair slept peacefully beside his sister, whose brown skin and dark curls contrasted starkly with her brother's appearance. Larry stared at them through the glass, love and doubt waging a bitter war in his heart. How could he raise children who would constantly remind him of a betrayal he could never confirm or dismiss? As he turned away from the nursery window, Larry made a decision that would alter 3 lives forever. He would not be coming back for them. They would be better off without a father who couldn't look at them without question, without pain. He walked down the hospital corridor, past the room where Eva's body lay, past the nurses who called after him, and into the cool night air, leaving behind the only remaining pieces of the woman he had loved. Inside the hospital, in the quiet nursery, the twins' tiny hands found each other across the small space separating their bassinets, clasping together as if they already knew they would only have each other in the world that awaited them. "Hilda, have you seen my blue shirt?" Eric called from the bedroom he'd had to himself since their 18th birthday. His voice echoed through the modest apartment they shared near the community college. Hilda appeared in the doorway, holding up the shirt in question. "It was in the laundry basket where you left it. I ironed it for your interview." At 20 years old, Hilda Holder had grown into a poised young woman with deep brown skin, expressive eyes, and a quiet strength that belied her difficult upbringing. "You're a lifesaver," Eric said with a grateful smile. Unlike his twin sister, Eric had fair skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes that often made strangers question if they were actually related. I need all the help I can get for this hospital internship. The Holder twins had been inseparable since birth, bound by a shared history that began with tragedy. After their father abandoned them at the hospital, they were placed in the foster care system and eventually adopted by Michelle and I'm thinking about forgiveness, Hilda finally said. Not just forgiving you, she nodded to Larry, but forgiving ourselves too for the anger we've carried, for the time we've lost. Eric looked at his twin with surprise. That's very generous of you, considering everything. It's not generosity, Hilda explained. It's self-preservation. I don't want to carry this weight anymore. She turned to Larry. What you did was wrong. Abandoning us, lying about us. It caused pain that can never be fully healed. Larry nodded, accepting the truth of her words. But Hilda continued, you also created something meaningful from your regret, your research, your surgical innovations. Those came from your loss, from your guilt, and ultimately they saved my life. She reached for Eric's hand. Maybe saved both our lives if Eric has the same condition. What are you saying exactly? Eric asked. I'm saying I want to try, Hilda replied simply, to know our father, our grandfather, to build something new from the broken pieces of our past. Not to forget or excuse what happened, but to move forward. She looked at Larry directly. Can you do that? Can you be honest with us, vulnerable with us? Not just the brilliant surgeon, but the flawed man who made a terrible mistake. Larry seemed at a loss for words. I want to, he finally said. I don't know if I know how, but I want to try. Richard wiped a tear from his eye. Family is never perfect, he said. It's messy and complicated and painful sometimes. But it's also healing if we let it be. Eric remained skeptical. This isn't a movie where everything gets wrapped up neatly with a heartfelt conversation. There are 20 years of absence we can't just erase. No one's trying to erase anything, Hilda assured him. We're just deciding what to build on top of it. She squeezed his hand. But this has to be your choice, too, Eric. We do this together or not at all. Eric looked around the room, at the sister who had always been his constant, at the father who had failed them but ultimately saved Hilda, at the grandfather who had spent years searching for them. He thought about the empty spaces in their lives, the questions about their origins that had haunted them since childhood. I don't know if I can forgive yet, he said honestly. But I can start by listening, by learning who you are now, he told Larry, not just who you were then. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning, a cautious first step toward healing. 6 months later, Hilda and Eric stood at their mother's grave for the first time. Larry and Richard stood a respectful distance away, giving the twins space for this moment. Hilda placed flowers against the simple headstone. I wish we could have known her, she said softly. Me, too, Eric agreed. His recent tests had confirmed he carried the same genetic marker for the heart condition that had affected both his mother and sister, though it remained dormant for now. Regular monitoring and medication would help prevent it from developing into the crisis Hilda had faced. In the months since Hilda's surgery, they had begun the complicated process of forming relationships with Larry and Richard. There had been difficult conversations, painful revelations, and moments of connection. Trust was building slowly, one shared meal, one family story, one medical consultation at a time. Hilda's recovery had progressed well. She had returned to her studies with renewed purpose, now focused on cardiac care for children in the foster system. Eric had accepted the internship at Mercy Hospital, working in a different department from his father, but occasionally consulting with him on cases. Nothing was perfect. There were still moments of anger, of hurt, of wondering what might have been if Larry